So, welcome everyone. Michael Tracy was promised. He's here most Wednesdays. Today, he is says he's at a Senate hearing. Although I saw him come into the room, so maybe he's just going to be an observer. Either way, um, yeah, there's a lot we could talk about anyway. I just published an article within the last hour or two called "Trump Does Have a Plan." It's North Korea, and the whole debate over whether Trump has a plan or not is kind of missing the point. People just kind of assume that a plan means his interests are aligned with that of the United States, and often they are. A healthy, a normal, psychologically normal president probably wants to leave behind a good legacy. My old professor Eric Posner argued in his book, The Executive Unbound, that we should have a stronger president and a weaker Congress because the president takes into account the interests of the whole country. He's kind of above interest groups or factionalism, and the president is just going to take into account the best interest of society. The person most likely to do that, he's going to be the most accountable and care about his legacy and all that. So we should have a government that gives more power to the executive branch. Okay, and so this is arguable. I don't think he ever imagined that we would have a man like this, that our system would kind of break so badly that you would end up with Trump. And then when you have a person who is just out of his mind, he wants praise, but it's not. You can't imagine Trump caring what the history books say 50 years from now or 100 years from now. You imagine Trump is about immediate gratification. As long as he's got some cultists, he's not really picky about who worships him. So if half the country thinks he's a god, that's that's good enough for him. And that's what he needs. He will, he'll be fine with that. He doesn't need to impress the curator of the Smithsonian who watches over the exhibit of American history and discusses the various presidents. I can't imagine him caring about that person. He's made for low human capital, and low human capital is who he wants to worship him, and that's worked. He's been remarkably successful in that effort. Read up on the new apostolic reformation, I think is how you say it. There's these Pentecostal preachers, these people in the middle of America, middle of nowhere in America, who believe basically Trump is God. They believe in prophets. They have these podcasters and these streamers who believe they're prophets, and they talk to God, and they basically just worship Trump, and they're into election denial and every kind of other issue that is part of the Trump cult. And so this is the kind of man that we're dealing with. And someone told me earlier, just before I jumped on here, that could he really want to be a dictator? Is that an accurate understanding of how this man operates? Like, will he really want to wreck the country? And I just said, you look at other people who've become dictators through history, like Vladimir Putin or Hugo Chavez is maybe not the best example, but basically most people who end up dictators, they come across a lot more sane than Trump does. They can sit there and pretend to be for a few minutes, they can pretend to be normal people who have concerns, who have normal human instincts. Like if Vladimir Putin could do that, you could just listen. If you just were an alien and came to Earth and you were studying our culture and you watched Putin for 5-10 minutes, you would say might be a reasonable human being. And then Trump, he just talks about makes up stuff about his crowd sizes, calls people nasty, calls people disgusting pigs, just doesn't care about truth, just shouts down reporters, just brags about how great he is when they're in the Oval Office and Zelensky is there. They're having that infamous meeting, and Trump is basically just going, they never broke a ceasefire under me. The other leaders were stupid. Just like a child just needs to compare himself to Obama or Biden or previous presidents, and he's just kind of transparently not a mature adult in his thinking. And so, if Putin, who comes across as 100 times more intelligent, reasonable, self-aware than Trump does, could be a dictator, why wouldn't Trump at least try to be a dictator? Now, he might not get a third term. I still think that's unlikely. I haven't updated that far. Someone says Trump too low IQ to become a dictator. No, no, he's perfect IQ. He's perfect IQ to be the king of low human capital. He has this domination instinct. You look at these people like Muammar Gaddafi or Idi Amin; they don't seem like geniuses. You just have to have alpha male traits and an instinct for power. That's the thing. You have to have an instinct for power. Probably requires some minimum intelligence, but not a huge amount. And so the North Korea analogy should not be understood that he's going to create literally a North Korea. He's going to gain that much control over the country. But he's basically created something with North Korean norms on the right side of the political spectrum. It's amazing how much. So the free press is interesting because they publish these articles. They publish Tyler just telling the truth about these terrorists, but then they publish people who are really don't know what they're talking about, like Batya. Or I saw them feature Victor Davis Hansen the other day. Was it the Free Press? I don't know. Maybe it was that. But anyway, they do people like Batya. They publish people who are just have terrible understanding of economics. They publish Michael Lind, and I went to the comments the other day of the Tyler piece just to see what the Free Press crowd was saying, and they're basically they don't want to argue points. Like this is the Free Press audience. This isn't Breitbart or something. So this is the Free Press, relatively smarter. They're at a place where there's more diversity of opinion, and they're all just about defending Trump. It's not about defending the ideas. It's like give Trump a chance, Trump this, Trump that, and so you have these masses, these hordes of idiots who are just about worshiping this one man, and then you say, well, they're MAGA communism. It's almost giving it too much intellectual content because it's just about this one man who they've made an object of veneration. And you see these clips now of Fox. You see Jesse Waters, and he's just waxing poetically about how Trump is playing golf and not caring as the stock market crashes. It's not arguments. It's just that's why the MAGA coalition can have all kinds. Some people in the MAGA coalition say they're basically Maoists. They say we're going to suffer and it's going to be great, and then others say he's going to make a deal and we're going to become wealthy, right? And these things contradict each other, but it doesn't matter because the core of MAGA is just worshiping one man. So it's the same thing with the foreign policy uh, aspect of it, where Lindsey Graham is in good standing with MAGA. He appears on Hannity. So is JD Vance and Rand Paul, people who are JD Vance is obviously a much more of a cultist than Rand Paul, but people who are anti-intervention, right? And you could have it doesn't matter what your view on intervention is in foreign countries, as long as you worship Trump. That's all these people care about. And low human capital is low human capital. You do not understand. If you are a smart person, you care something about ideas. You are probably here because you have intellectual curiosity. The Trump supporter does not have intellectual curiosity. The Trump supporter is confused, lost, needs something to believe in. And Trump is kind of the personification where they've unloaded all their hopes and dreams onto this one man. And that's why they'll say anything. And some intellectuals are like this, but most, it's this is the Trump base. This is the free press commenters. These are the people who watch Fox News. This is uh, your proverbial uncle at the Thanksgiving table. That's what's going on. That's the kind of masses of Trump supporters, and then you have the intellectuals who are often playing to that base. Often they're getting likes or retweets or follows or building an audience based on that. And even if you don't play to them, like the free press, maybe chases these people somewhat, but the free press is not just set up to gain the approval of MAGAs. But still, just the fact that it's not like a left wing outlet brings in all these MAGAs because there is just a huge mass of people who have nothing going on in their brains other than the worship of Trump. And this morning I saw probably the worst tweet ever. I mean, I'm just like I've lost so much respect for like the intellectual. I had little, I mean, little respect for them. I'm like down here, and then it's like I don't think it could get worse, and then it gets worse, right? I didn't think I could have less respect for most Fox News hosts. It's amazing. There's been a little bit of pushback, but the opinion people like Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters have been absolutely terrible. There's a tweet today from this guy. Let's see, the French guy, if you know what I'm talking about. It's on my phone. Hold on. Let me pull this up because it's so bad. So yeah, Pascal Emmanuel Gobry is a PEG. He goes, I have to say the last few days have made me about 2 to 3 times more sympathetic to protectionism. Free traders have basically put forward zero arguments. What planet is this guy living on? Just screeching assertions and toddler tantrums. People who are confident in their worldview don't act like this. Okay, so like if Trump dropped a nuclear weapon on Kansas, like a lot of national security experts would come out and they would be freaking out about it. They would be throwing tantrums and they would make screeching assertions, certainly. And then this guy would come back and say, well, people who are right, who are confident in their views, don't talk like this. Right? It's like, yes, it's so bad. People are freaking out because it is like this is crazy. This is the economic equivalent. This is the economic equivalent of the national security uh, policy, where you would just kind of nuke Kansas or something like that. Just do something that is completely mad, and of course, people are gonna freak out about it. And then the idea that they have zero arguments, like just look at the stock market. Just look at it. I mean, you don't even the market has taken into account these policies, and then like okay, even if you didn't have that, there's nothing new that's been discovered of like Adam Smith from Adam Smith and Ricardo. You have Oren Cass, and Oren Cass is constantly getting dragged for like not knowing what he's talking about. Right. So they have no argument. Like maybe they screech a bit. They do. I'm sure they screech a bit because this is an incredibly big deal. Um, but they have arguments. They have think tanks. They have books. They have articles. I was just listening to Derek Thompson's podcast, and he had Michael Pettis's co-author on. And Michael Pettis is known for being like an anti-free trader, a guy who believes in kind of industrial policy. So his co-author was on Derek Thompson's podcast, and even him, he was like, "This is madness. This is the people who are protectionists, who have written books about protectionism and think it's a good thing, and we're getting ripped off by China and so forth." He says this is just insane, right? And so like that person has arguments. That's not even a free trader. I mean, maybe he is a free trader. I don't know exactly what this guy's views are, but a guy who's skeptical of the absolutist